Another thing that happened over the past week was Taylor Hall re-signed 4 years, $6 million per. We expected that. That was not something that surprised many people. We both said, I think on both shows last week, like we expect it to happen very soon. It did. Of course, after our shows ran, but I think on Poke the Bear, we assumed we acted as if it had been done.
We rolled with it.
Yeah, we just assumed it was fact, and it ended up obviously being fact. Now the focus turns to David Krejci. Now we'll get to Tuukka Rask later in this show because there's some updates with him. But with David Krejci, Sweeney's comments last week were interesting with Krejci in the sense that Sweeney obviously said we're going to respect his privacy. We've been in contact. He's yet to make a decision. But he said one interesting thing, and he said there's no timeline. And my first thought was, why? Why is there no timeline? You have to – signing opens this week for free agents. Why would you say there's no timeline? That's a pretty big piece to not know what he's going to end up doing because that's your second line center.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's right up there with Hall, I think, in terms of, dominoes that have to fall before the offseason really ramps up. He's right up there, David Krejci, in terms of, I think, gauging just how far you think this team can go because you look at just the other options that the Bruins would turn to if they don't have Krejci. It gets pretty dour pretty quick, right? I mean, you've got there was rumors about them trading for Christian Dvorak from Arizona, who is an okay player, but I don't think he's necessarily a 2C. Maybe they think he can develop into one. If you put him with Hall, who knows? Because he had good numbers with him in Arizona, but still not the best option. Free agency, probably Philip Danault is the best option. Great defensive player. I don't know if you're going to get the most, the potential offense out of that group that you would get with Krejci when you've got Hall with him. And again, also I think he's going to cost a lot of money, Danault. You're looking at like a Paul Stastny, who's like an older vet. Yeah, who's not as good as David Krejci. So you look at all the options, David Krejci far and away makes the most sense in terms of one, value in term, which he's probably going to sign a short-term deal at below what he made the last couple of years at 7.25. And I still think you put him with Hall and whether it be Craig Smith or another player, he could still put up like a 70-point season if he's with these guys, if they played the level they played last year at the end of the regular season. So he's far and away the best option. It's about just waiting to find out what he wants to do because I think when you map out the backup plans the Bruins have, David Krejci makes far and away the most sense, but they need to find out about him, what his plans are soon because you can't go into this offseason, I think, and be like, all right, we're going to, target, Coleman and McCabe and Suter and all these guys, but then you have this huge vacancy at 2C. If you don't know that and don't know whether you have to divert some of this cap towards a guy like Danault or another center, then it gets dicey, right? So you hope that going into Wednesday at noon when free agency opens, they either have a deal signed or they're just waiting to cross the T's and dot the I's because he's right up there, I think, with Hall in terms of, you still have a good team, but in terms of charting just how far you can go, you need, I think, David Krejci in the fold, barring some crazy trade. If they traded for like Sam Reinhart, who can play center, then, we'd know that they'd be moving on. But unless you're getting Eichel, which you're not getting Eichel this year, then I don't know what exactly the go-to move is if Krejci doesn't want to come back.
Yeah, I don't see there being a deal imminent at the moment. I think this is going to take some time. Some people are comparing it to Chara. I think this is way more urgent than Chara. Chara was also way older. Like, I think there are other teams who would definitely go for Krejci. I know he says he doesn't want to go anywhere else. If someone comes in there with a lot of money, maybe that does it. Maybe the Czech becomes even more, he's leaning towards there. Sweeney's words weren't exactly encouraging. By the way, Riley Nash is a free agent. So maybe Riley Nash, a little reunion with the Bruins.
Rekindle that Bruins magic.
Get that going again. That seemed to work in 2017-18. But no, I mean, when you look at the free agent crop, there's nobody better than Krejci that you could sign at solid money, or even just better than Krejci in general, a fit that he's been with Hall and with Craig Smith, which makes me think, barring, let's say Krejci doesn't come back, barring there's no big trade, I think because they were so willing to play the kids on defense last year after Chara, it makes me think that they're just going to do this internally. This is not going to be a position that they go out and make a huge trade with. This is not a position that they go out and sign someone. This is going to be a position where they bring Coyle up. They say, we're going to put you with Hall and Smith. We expect more production out of you. And they're going to try Stanika on that third line potentially. And they have Curtis Lazar for the fourth, or they try Trent Frederick somewhere. This is, I think, just going off of what they did on D last year, where they wanted to play the kids, where they wanted to see what they had. If Krejci does leave, that would be the perfect opportunity to see what you have in Studnicka, what you have in Frederick. Now, do I agree with that? Not really. I think Krejci needs to be brought back, or you need to have some sort of plan in place to make a trade for a top six centerman, because again, this cup window is closing. You need to bring the band back as much as you can. I don't see Coyle putting up Krejci's numbers. I don't see Studnicka, blossoming. Maybe he does. Maybe Stanika does work on that third line. I don't know. But I'm just telling you, given what the Bruins have done in the past, I would not be surprised to see them just play the kids and just completely fill that role internally.
Yeah, which I guess is maybe the best option beyond, signing Dano, but still in terms of meshing with this win now window, then it's kind of definitely a tough pill, I think, to swallow, just because it's so much uncertainty. You don't really know what you're getting out of that third line with Studnicka, who by all accounts, I think Mark Divers said he was added about 10 pounds of muscles, which is encouraging, but still you don't know, you can't go into the year, I think, expecting him to be a 40-point guy, right? And that's a key role that he's going to be thrown into. It's not like it's in this window you're in, you roll in, see what you have in them. You've got a guy that also on that third line role, let's say Jake DeBrusk's back, you need a center that's going to drive play and get him going in this year. You don't know who's going to be on the right side, whether it's Kasha or if it's a guy they sign in free agency. Like, you're not signing, I think, a guy
Richie.
like, yeah, I mean, if you even look at like free agency, like let's say they sign Blake Coleman, you're not signing Blake Coleman to help drive your third line with Jack Studnicka in the middle, right? Like at least that's what you hope doesn't happen. And I'm sure Blake Coleman would be happy if his third line center is Jack Studnicka. So it's definitely a tough situation where there's so many moving parts involved, and all of them really can't get started until you have a definitive answer for what Dave Krejci is going to do. So from Bruins' perspective, I'm sure they'd love to have him back for another year or two. It fits right in with the window that they've kind of carved out for themselves. So if he doesn't come back, I'm not saying the season is lost by any means, but it's definitely, you're going to have to take a longer look at this team and how they're built in terms of being prime contenders, because David Krejci plays a key role in that, especially outside of that top line.